Welcome to Module 3 of Searching for Web-Based Resources in the Next Public Health Professionals course. In this module, we will be focusing on finding evidence summaries and systematic reviews to support your public health practice. This project has been supported with federal funds from the National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The objectives of this module are to use the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, usually called the USPSTF, and health evidence websites for evidence-based recommendations. As we have said before, searching is a cyclical process. You may need to repeat your search several times in different resources to find what you need. In this module, we will be using two resources with high levels of evidence. We will be using the same PICO question as in previous modules of this series. Our P is high school students. Our I is STI education via social media. Our C is standard education. And our O is the decrease of risky behavior and incidence of STIs. When choosing resources to search, it is helpful to target one that will yield high levels of evidence. Returning to our evidence pyramid, we will focus here on finding guidelines and systematic reviews at the top of the evidence pyramid. Because these are composed of higher levels of evidence and they take a lot of effort to prepare, there are fewer of them. They are often produced by major health organizations or governmental agencies. A definition. Guidelines are a standard set of information based on scientific evidence of the effectiveness and efficacy of the best practices for addressing health problems commonly encountered in public health or clinical practice. Where such evidence is lacking, guidelines are sometimes based on the consensus opinion of experts. To produce a guideline, creators try to pull together the best available evidence to address the health problems in a particular population. When reviewing this form of evidence, make sure that there was an attempt to gather the evidence systematically versus trying to only base it on expert opinion. Please review the critical appraisal modules as part of this EBP course to find other ways to critically appraise guidelines. While guidelines are often clinically focused, they can provide guidance for public health professionals in prevention and screening. Here we will use a source to some evidence-based clinical guidelines. The USPSTF website we'll use today to find evidence for our PICO question. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force is an independent, volunteer panel of national experts in disease prevention and evidence-based practice. The task force works to improve the health of all Americans by making evidence-based recommendations about preventative health services. Published recommendations are a synthesis of all levels of evidence and are assigned a grade to help providers decide whether to implement the recommendation into practice for their population or patients. Let's take a look at how to find guidelines from the USPSTF. On this homepage, we can see the menu bar at the top to review their recommendations. Click on Recommendations and then Published Recommendations. Here, we found 104 hits or results for the published recommendations that they have available right now. You can search using one of your PICO terms to look for a recommendation, or you can use the filters on the left as well. There are filters for the evidence grade they assign, the category, so a particular discipline, age group, gender, or type of preventive service. You might choose to review only grade A and B recommendations. Be aware that different organizations use different grading and rating scales. There may not be consistency between organizations. Let's search sexually transmitted infections and see what USPSTF has to offer. Now I will use the filters on the left and scroll down to age group and select adolescent. As I select this, I will look at results. Here we have 41 hits or recommendations. That's a lot fewer than the earlier list. And just browsing through, you see sexually transmitted infection, behavioral counseling as one of the first hits. And that's relevant to our PICO question. Let's take a look at that statement. I will click on it and it takes me to a recommendation. This web page has 3 different areas to review for preventive service. The recommendation summary, which is very brief, includes the population, the recommendation made, and the grade that's associated with that recommendation. USPSTF gives this recommendation a B, which means there is good quality evidence behind the recommendation. Again, be aware grading systems may not be consistent with other guidelines, so be sure to read each site's definitions. Next, you have a clinician's summary, which you can expand and take a look at to see how to implement into a setting. You can see the full statement under the picture or by scrolling down, and there you will also see the evidence behind their recommendations. On this recommendation, on Table 2, I see media-based interventions without in-person counseling. Social media interventions could fall into this category. In the full recommendation, the USPSTF gives you all the information about how they put this recommendation together, how to implement it in your setting, and what difference it can make to your population. When reading over a USPSTF recommendation, always take a look at the full recommendation to get the elements to do the critical appraisal. Now let's turn to our next resource. Another definition. What exactly is a systematic review? It is a review in which evidence on a topic has been systematically identified, appraised, and summarized according to predetermined criteria. USPSTF recommendations, which we just saw, are usually created after doing a systematic review. But there are many other systematic reviews available. They are considered high-level evidence because they are looking at many studies and can point the way in your public health practice. Not all topics will have a systematic review, but if yours does, it can be very helpful. Health Evidence is an excellent resource for systematic review information for public health. This site is produced by McMaster University in Ontario, Canada, a longtime leader in evidence-based practice. This site offers access to over 8,000 quality-rated systematic review summaries evaluating the effectiveness and cost-effectiveness of public health interventions, including cost data. The creators search the published literature and compile public health relevant reviews, eliminating your need to search and screen individual databases. Using the search box in the upper right, I tried a few terms relating to our PICO question, and we'll search sexually transmitted social media. My search found 68 results, and near the top I see sexual health interventions delivered to participants by mobile technology, a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. This looks highly relevant. The 3 green triangles to the right indicate that this review has a strong quality rating. You can click Quality Assessment to see how the study was evaluated. Here is the simplified quality assessment, indicating that all the elements they want to see are there. You can choose to view the complete quality assessment at the bottom. Here we can see the organization has done a critical appraisal similar to what we do in that section of the next modules. At this point, I'm going to scroll back and click on the PubMed link out to see if I can possibly get to the full text or the complete article. Note that Health Evidence provides summaries only, not the full, complete text. Here, after clicking on PubMed link, I will click on the BMJ full text icon and see if I can get to the full text. Unfortunately, I reach a paywall for this item. You would need to contact a library or consider having your organization pay to access the full material. USPSTF and Health Evidence are great starting points for guidelines and systematic reviews. Keep in mind they are not the only sources for materials with high levels of evidence. PubMed and CINAHL databases have guidelines as well. The Cochrane Library has systematic reviews of evidence. PubMed is freely available, and you'll find information on searching that database in the next module series. Find out if you have access to these other resources through your health department or a nearby public college or university with a health sciences program. They may allow visitors to use their online library resources on site. This concludes this module. Please proceed on to the next section of the next public health module series.